So, we got Jimmy High Roller remaking my NBA GOAT pyramid.
About 3 years ago, I released my GOAT pyramid, featuring 30 of what I believe to be the greatest NBA players of all time. And it's okay.
You got Bird in Tier 3 and Magic in Tier 2? So you're saying Magic is better than Bird?
It could,
how many rings I got?
It could use some work. So today, we're going to be updating the
Hotel Fry.
NBA GOAT
So basically the dudes that had no rings.
Pyramid.
Put him Tier 5. Dudes that had no rings is Tier 5.
Today's video is brought to you by SeatGeek. A new NBA season is A few weeks ago, Shaq shared this basketball GOAT pyramid on Instagram. And I only know this because people were tagging me in the comments thinking it was mine. But it's not.
Oh.
The dead giveaway was LeBron being on Tier 3. Also, current day Steph on Tier 4 was a massive red flag. And a pretty solid player by the name of Hakeem Olajuwon was nowhere to be found on this pyramid at all. So, as cool as it would be to have Shaq share some content from the channel, this NBA GOAT pyramid is from someone else. But it did get me thinking. With all of the events that have taken place over the last 4 NBA seasons, I think it's time we update our GOAT pyramid. So here's the pyramid I made 3 years ago, May 23rd, 2019 to be exact. Which means since this video was released, 4 new teams have been crowned champions, 4 MVPs have been awarded, and there has been 3.5 seasons worth of NBA context to consider for our new pyramid. Now I want to keep this new pyramid at 30 players like our original one. So if I add any players, I unfortunately have to take players off as well. And just like with my original GOAT pyramid, there are a few factors I'm going to be considering throughout this process. A player's peak, which I value more than longevity, their accomplishments and hardware, their skill and ability, and even the era that they played in. And of course, just like with my original GOAT pyramid, these selections are all based on my personal opinion. So with that out of the way, let's make some changes to this pyramid. So first things first, I have to make one massive adjustment to the top of this pyramid. Some may agree with it, some may not. But after winning his 4th championship and 4th Finals MVP while climbing every all-time leaderboard over the last 4 seasons, LeBron James has earned a spot in Tier 1. Because at this point, the all-time discussion has virtually become Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and then everyone else. I still have MJ as the GOAT, but the gap between MJ and LeBron feels smaller than the gap between LeBron and whoever comes next. So I feel this change was necessary and well-earned. But that leaves us with 3 players on Tier 2. And that just looks weird. So when considering peaks and accolades and impact on the game and every other factor I can conjure up, I've decided to move Bill Russell and Larry Bird up to Tier 2.
There you go. That's why I wanted right there. I wanted Larry Bird on Tier 2. You got Magic on Tier 2. You got to put Larry on Tier 2. Okay, come on.
Original pyramid, I had Magic on Tier 2 and Bird on Tier 3. But with LeBron moving up, this gives room for Bird and Magic to be on the same tier, as they should be.
Yeah, they should
Russell,
be. I said start a video.
Greatest defensive player of all time. There's not much to be said here. Now, there's 2 players in particular who have solidified their legacies over the last 4 seasons and have earned spots on Tier 3 with Shaq, Hakeem, Duncan, and Wilt. Those players are, of course, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant.
How about Wilt? How come Wilt and Tim Duncan should be Tier 2? Wilt and Tim Duncan should be Tier 2. What are you talking? No, I don't agree with this part right here. These 2 should be Tier 2.
Steph has proven without a shadow of a doubt that he's the greatest shooter of all time. And after winning his 4th championship and 1st Finals MVP last season, he's made the jump into
Tier 3. And where's Westbrook at? Where's Westbrook at?
3. Steph's brilliance and consistency season after season has extended his prime past where I think most fans would have ever considered. Now in his 13th season, at 34 years old, he's not only one of the best players in the league, he's putting together arguably the best season of his historic career. And the same could be said for Kevin Durant. He's got all the hardware, a league MVP, 2 championships, and 2 finals MVPs. But what has bumped Durant from Tier 4 into Tier 3 is his relentless consistency as a generational talent. Since 2019, he's made 2 more All-NBA teams while averaging 29, 7, and 6. And this has earned him the jump from Tier 4 to Tier 3. And that brings us to Tier 4, which has some pretty major changes to it. And our first change comes with
We're in their corner and
Jimmy, how are you talking about State Farm?
John Stockton, who gets demoted into Tier 5, which puts him at about the 5th or 6th greatest point
you don't got no ring
guard of all time, behind Magic, Steph, Oscar, and Isaiah. Scottie Pippen also got demoted to Tier 5.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, but I'm not sure he got rings. So I don't know.
I made
That's
this
tough.
decision because despite Scottie's critical role throughout the Bulls dynasty, his talents as an individual player just don't warrant him a spot amongst players like Oscar Robertson, Karl Malone, and Julius Erving. And unfortunately, Dwayne Wade and Isaiah Thomas get demoted into Tier 5 as well. All-time great players.
Dwayne Wade not even in Tier 4? What?
But being in Tier 4 means a player is, at worst, a top 21 player of all time. And I just don't consider Wade or Isaiah to be of that caliber. But I would consider them.
How about Russ? Russ should be at least Tier 3, right?
Them both to be top 30 players of all time, with similar relatively short but brilliant peaks and playoff heroics throughout their careers. And with these changes, Tier 4 becomes a barren wasteland with only 3 players. So we've got some promoting to do, starting with Jerry West.
We got Charles Barkley on our list, but not Russell Westbrook, please.
12 All-NBA teams, Finals MVP, and 5 All-Defensive Team selections with career averages of 27, 6, and 5 a game. The only other players in NBA history to achieve these career averages are LeBron James and Kevin Durant. So the logo gets the bump into Tier 4. My next promotion goes to Moses Malone. 3-time league MVP, a finals MVP, and one of the greatest rebounders the game has ever seen. Honestly, he should have never been in Tier 5 to begin with, so let's put him where he truly belongs. And my last pair of promotions goes to Dirk Nowitzki and Kevin Garnett. The individual dominance of both KG and Dirk that spanned over 2 decades is matched by only a handful of all-time greats. But if not their sustained excellence over the course of 21 seasons, it was their massive peaks that earned them a spot in Tier 4. 2 of the most skilled, versatile, and imposing big men the game has ever seen. Which leaves us with Tier 5 and some tough decisions to make. There are only 2 players that made my original GOAT pyramid that did not
Wade should be on Tier 4.
Cut in my new pyramid. And
no, I'm thinking about it. You got Dirk and KD on Tier 4. You should put Wade on Tier 4.
Players are Bob Pettit and Allen Iverson.
And move Isaiah Thomas up to Tier 4 at least, and David Robinson.
But with all these adjustments, there are now 2 spots open.
Can't believe you have Barkley on the list, but not. Can't believe you have Barkley on the list, but not Westbrook.
Of all the players who Harden missed the cut the first time around, the players who I considered for my new pyramid were Giannis.
He's also by Intrivio, Jimmy Harrell,
Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, James Harden, Chris Paul, and Kawhi Leonard. Of all the active players in the NBA, aside from LeBron, Steph, and Durant, these are
How about Westbrook? Where's Westbrook? You put Chris Paul on there, but not Westbrook? If you want Chris Paul, you put Westbrook too.
Only players who even have a shot at making the pyramid. And since my original pyramid 3.5 years ago, Nikola Jokic has made 4 All-NBA teams, 3 of them being first-team selections. He's won back-to-back MVPs, he's led the Nuggets to the conference finals, and he's put up 2 of the most historically efficient and productive seasons in league history. It's only a matter of time before Jokic joins the GOAT pyramid. But at the moment, it's just a bit too soon. Now for the case of James Harden, I had to sit and really think about his potential addition to the pyramid. Harden had one of the highest offensive peaks in league history, averaging 31, 8,
he won scoring champion like 3 times in a row.
6 a game over the course of 6 seasons. He's won an MVP, he's made 7 All-NBA teams, and he's just one of 7 players in NBA history
10 All-Star games in a row,
a scoring title, and an assist title. But where James Harden,
you know who's the other one? Westbrook.
Falls short compared to other players on the pyramid is his performance in the playoffs. He just hasn't broke through on the biggest stage.
So has Barkley. So hasn't Barkley. You still got him on the list.
The heliocentric offense that allowed him to put up such unbelievable stat lines became a weak point to his teams in the postseason. So for now, James Harden does not crack the GOAT pyramid. The next player I considered was Chris Paul, one of the most complete point guards in recent years. And despite his lack of playoff success, he has managed to completely transform every team he's been a part of. CP3 is a tricky one because, as I touched on before, if you compare Chris Paul to John Stockton, who is in Tier 5 on my pyramid, their careers are almost identical. And after CP3's first trip to the finals last season, their overall numbers and accomplishments only become more and more similar with time. Chris Paul
last season they got knocked out by Luka.
Peak, but Stockton's record-breaking ability to generate offense for nearly 2 decades while being a lockdown perimeter defender.
Westbrook has transferred every team that he's played for too. What you mean? Westbrook did the same thing with the Wizards, did the same thing with the Thunder. He did the same thing with the Rockets. What you mean?
Defender gives him a razor-thin edge over CP3, in my opinion.
He made the Wizards relevant.
Now, Chris Paul doesn't quite crack tier 5, which leaves us with the 2 new additions to my GOAT pyramid, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard. Now, since my original pyramid, which was released just before the end of the 2019 season, Giannis has went from a great, young, ascending player to a certified all-time great. In just 3.5 years, Giannis won a championship, 2 MVPs, a Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, 4 All-NBA First Teams, 4 All-Defensive First Teams, and an All-Star Game MVP, while averaging 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. That's a pretty solid 3.5-year stretch for the big man. So I had to add Giannis to the pyramid, and I'm going to put him comfortably in tier 4. And with our second and
here's one thing you need to do.
You want to talk about online shopping too, Jimmy High Roller?
final edition, Kawhi Leonard is added to tier 5.
Number 5.
My original pyramid was created 3 weeks before Kawhi won his second championship and second finals MVP, which led to his greatness stock skyrocketing. Now, Kawhi is a tough player to rank among any all-time scenario because when he's playing, he's one of the greatest players to ever lace up. But over the last few seasons, he just hasn't laced up a whole lot. But it's impossible to look past his 2 finals MVPs and his run as the best two-way player in the NBA. So Kawhi gets added to the pyramid, but just barely, sneaking into tier 5. And there it is.
Hey, Westbrook not even on the list, man.
NBA GOAT pyramid. And I want to point out a few interesting things that I noticed throughout the process of making this. If we break down the pyramid by position, there are 6 point guards, 3 shooting guards,
7 point guards, add Westbrook.
6 power.
Add Westbrook. Dang, there's only 3 shooting guards? Dang! Look at Jerry West. I thought Jerry West was a shooting guard.
Forwards, and 7 centers featured on the pyramid.
Larry Bird was a small forward. I thought he was like a shooting guard.
I initially thought centers would have the largest presence here, with big men running the league for nearly 6 decades, but turns out a well-rounded, versatile wing has been the ideal archetype for a potential NBA great. If we break the GOAT pyramid down by the decade that each player was drafted in, then we'll find that among all players who made it onto the pyramid,
dang! The 80s, dang! If you were drafted in the 80s, you probably a great.
4 of them were drafted in the 50s, 3 were drafted in the 60s, 2 were drafted in the 70s, a whopping 10 players were drafted in the 80s, 5 in the 90s, 4 in the 2000s, and 2 in the 2010s. And since most players peak in the decade after they were drafted, it could be said that the 90s and
Russ, add 5 in the 2000s because of Westbrook.
Since most players peak in the decade after they were drafted, it could be said that the 90s were the best era for NBA basketball, or at least the era that featured the most all-time great talent. Giannis is the youngest player featured on this pyramid at just 28 years old, completely bypassing tier 5 altogether and landing on tier 4 after just 9 seasons in the NBA. This puts Giannis somewhere between the 15th and 20th best player all time. Giannis's ascent amongst the greatest players of all time was pretty quick, but we've seen a rapid climb to basketball royalty like this before. Back in 1996, the NBA announced the 50 greatest NBA players to commemorate the league's 50th anniversary. And despite some backlash on the selection, a 24-year-old Shaquille O'Neal was selected as...
Bro, this dude was like in his 4th season. He was a 50 greatest player of all time in his 4th year. I remember that.
Top 50 player all time after just 4 seasons in the NBA. The second youngest player that was selected for that exclusive Greatest 50 club was Scottie Pippen, who was 31. Back in 2009, sports writer and analyst Bill Simmons released his original basketball pyramid that featured 96 players. At the time, LeBron James was just 24 years old in his 6th NBA season. He hadn't won a league MVP yet, he had only made 1 trip to the finals at that point, and he just hit his peak. But a young LeBron not only made Bill's GOAT basketball pyramid, he was already so transcendently good that Simmons selected him as the 20th greatest player in NBA history. And after the last half-decade Giannis has put together, he has slingshotted himself onto the same trajectory. Now, I have to mention the handful of players that just narrowly missed the cut. Those players were Steve Nash, Patrick Ewing, Allen Iverson, Jason Kidd, Bob Pettit, Bob Cousy, James Harden, Chris Paul, Nikola Jokic, and George Mikan.
Where's Westbrook?
All great players.
Where's
but when
Westbrook?
the spots are limited to just 30, the criteria to make the GOAT pyramid is a...
Bro, I can name like 10 players right now that Westbrook is better than. Bro,
I imagine
what?
if we redo this pyramid again in 5 years, we'll see Jokic on here, we might see Luka Doncic on here, or possibly James Harden
Westbrook,
and Chris Paul.
please.
But for now,
Westbrook,
this is my
please.
new, and I think improved, NBA GOAT pyramid. Let me know what you think. Which players are too low? Which players are too high? Who was left out that you think should have made the cut?
Westbrook.
Share your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, until next time.
Hey, W video, Jimmy High Road. Thanks for watching.